IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We're a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring a fresh perspective to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Policy. My name is Arjun and I work as a research analyst at the Takshashila Institution. And I have with me Megha, who's also a research analyst at the Takshashila Institution. Hey Megha, good to see you. It's been a long time.
Hi Arjun, good to see you too.
Yeah. So before we start, I just wanted our listeners to know about our graduate certificate program in public policy. The applications for our next cohort are now open and we offer courses in the field of technology policy, defense and foreign affairs, and also advanced public policy. Please visit school.takshashila.org.in to know more. So today we are again, every time Megha and I do a podcast, we talk about something related to technology and then we go on to talk about what China is doing in that field of technology. It's been a recurring theme for our podcast episodes and I guess today is no different. So Megha, how does it feel after a while we're talking about Chinese tech and it seems like nothing has changed, right?
Yeah, first of all, I'll never get bored of talking about Chinese tech. There's always something happening and it's, either it is small or some grand narrative or another party initiative, but it's an interesting topic. So I don't get bored.
Yeah, definitely. It's never boring with the Chinese. So today we're going to be talking about something interesting that one of the projects of the Chinese government. It's called the National Computing Network. So generally in the information age, right, the concept of computing power and the ability to handle large amounts of data, especially in short intervals of time, has become of utmost importance. And states and governments have been actively investing in raising the bar for ensuring that they have the required capabilities for computing. So in that context, actually, I have been working on a document related to computing and Megha has been working on a document related to computing. So we thought, why not just come together and talk about the Chinese National Computing Network, which they have decided to start in their country. Yeah, so let's get into it. So Megha, what exactly are the main objectives of this project? Is it do they have any specific objectives or is it just similar to like other Chinese projects which are grandeur in their name and in their the way they market it, but no one actually knows what it is? Does this have something that can be of credible information or is it just the fact that we have to kind of speculate like everything else?
Well, let me start with something. All Chinese plans are grand. No plan is just, regular. So even if it's as simple as, building a road from one place to another, it has to be a grand visionary plan conceptualized under the great. So yeah, like other plans, this is also one of those grand plans, but there is also some substance to this. So before I talk about objective, let me just give a little introduction to what this project is. So basically, a national computing network is where Chinese leaders and policymakers are trying to conceptualize a network of data centers and computing clusters that will be interconnected and that can be leveraged when it's needed. Like for example, they have planned several data centers and computing clusters in different parts of country on eastern and western side. And the plan is to connect them via internet and or maybe an intranet and then use that. Like for example, data will be processed in one place and actual other computations will be done in another place, or maybe data will be collected from one place and processed in another place. So that's kind of a rough overview. Now, under this project, the key kind of element here is this data from East and computing at West project. So National Computer Network is like one, it's a larger umbrella kind of thing. But under that, one key project is this data from East and computing at West. So as the name says, in the eastern side of country, there will be data and it will be computed and processed on the western side of country. Now, interestingly, they have named it because they have like few key objectives here. First is to increase overall computing power in China. Second is to promote green development. Third is to have effective investment, like expand the investment from eastern side to western side of country, and then also promote the regional development. The reason, like now, this on surface, these objectives seem like I mean, why? What does green development has to do with computing? But basically, what they're trying to do is computing needs a lot of power, but even so that power basically which is consumed should be consumed so that its carbon footprint is negative or neutral. So like that, there are different objectives.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, they kind of bring together a lot of different things into every single project, right? I mean, green development. I think I remember talking about this even with the standardization plan, and we were like,
Yeah.
how is even green development related to standardization? And of course, they have to put it in their objectives and make it clear that they're trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve. But again, this is very interesting. Like. When I was working on my paper related to advanced computing, I saw that many other countries, especially in the West, right? So they also have their own initiatives like the Euro HPC project in Europe and the National Quantum Initiative in US. All these are aimed at kind of creating computing clusters or increasing their computational capability of the state itself. So what I wanted to know with respect to the Chinese network, the Chinese National Computing Network itself, is the fact that has this been tied into any of their other major projects? Like, let's say, I saw that there was some relation between this and the digital economy, or some relationship between this and the EV market or something like that. So has this been already conceptualized into like a broad network of different projects, or is it just a standalone thing wherein it's kind of used for one specific purpose?
So officially, Arjun, the project has just objectives. It has not been directly kind of tied to any other project. But that is the official version. But if you look into objectives and go into details of what they're trying to achieve, you'll see a clear resemblance or clear connection to different kind of their projects and plans. Like for example, they have announced the first stage of this project. They have announced 10 data clusters and 8 computing power hubs, and they're in different regions, like from Beijing Tianjin Hebei region to Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region. So this, the establishment of data centers was also one of the goals of their big data development plan, because they wanted to, because Chinese government wanted to increase their, big data processing capability. So there was also initiative to, establish these data centers and computing clusters. So this, complements that. Then again, the goal to increase computing power is because they want to create a national digital economy. Basically, they want to digitize a lot of things and move over to all the processes to digital platforms. They'll need a lot of computing power to process that and to achieve that level of efficiency. So, of course, computing power is going to help there. And then there's also this 3-year action plan for development of new data centers that also ties up with this National Computing Network. And then there are other goals, which do not map directly, but if you kind of stretch into it, you can see the goals are largely aligned with the 14 5-year plan goals. Then there was this plan for development of Western region, which is largely undeveloped, or I wouldn't say undeveloped, but underdeveloped as compared to the Eastern region of China. So this again aligns with that, and it's directly actually mentioned in Go. Or when the objectives of this, data from East and Computing Invest project is to promote coordinated regional development. that is directly related to the plan which aims to develop Western region. Then again, green energy goals you can see. And largely, then there is also implication for military modernizations and industrial internet plan. So these are just few which I could, directly see and highlight. But if you kind of, read into other projects and, other sort of plans, you'll see that all these plans are kind of, interconnected, and maybe some part is named something different, but ultimately they're just doing the same thing. Yeah, I don't want to say that this is some kind of, grand narrative or plan, because it doesn't happen like that. But you can see that the focus areas are those which will just, complement each other, not directly, and won't cut into other areas.
Yeah, that's definitely there. I mean, it's more or less kind of integrating different systems into one. And maybe this is the project which they're choosing to kind of bring together different areas of at least some kind of overlapping to exist. And this can kind of, and computing power and computing capabilities required in any area, right? I mean, at least in the current digital age, it's just data, handling data and processing data is just required for any and every sector. So I guess that's their way of kind of bringing it all together. Yeah. So before we continue, let's just take a small break and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, Aditya Raj Kapoor, a long-distance biker, tells Cyrus all about his exciting solo travel around the world. On the Filter Coffee Podcast, Ujala Chaudhary talks to Karthik about growing up as an adopted child. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks about how we can put on our explorer's hats and seek adventure. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk analyze the implications of simultaneous elections in India. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna helps us identify green flags in relationships. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do please tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. You can check us out on YouTube as well. On ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, we have a list of all of our YouTube channels. Do check out if your favorite show is available as full video. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back. We were talking about the National Computing Network plan of China and what it kind of entails and how it can maybe revolutionize the digital economy and of China itself. So, Megha, also, there was this one question I had, right? So, you talked about building computing clusters and data centers and stuff like that. So, when PRI was initially conceived, right, the Belt and Road Initiative, it was no one actually knew what it was. Some people said it was infrastructure. Some people said it was just development. Some people said it was technology, infrastructure, development. So, like with respect to the computing network, right? So, is it just solely based off on building certain centers like data centers, or is it just infrastructure development in terms of technology driven infrastructure development, or does this have even kind of a technological drive to it? It's like, have they gone into improving how they can like build on their computing capabilities? Have they kind of maybe developed new kind of techniques or technologies with respect to high performance computing or quantum or anything like that to improve what they have? Or like, is it just the fact that they want to harness what they already have and process what data they're generating, and that's why they're just building these infrastructure related projects with respect to computing?
Yeah, so some details are, still fuzzy because this is very recently announced. But whatever I have kind of, read so far, Primarily, it seems like they want to build, new infrastructure, especially in the western regions of country, or western and probably maybe central also, because some of the data processing centers fall into central region. So primarily, it feels like an infrastructure drive. But then again, the objective of projects, and then there is, also next stage mentioned. So next stage of project, they have mentioned that they want to connect internet facilities and then accelerate data exchange. They want to support technological innovation and integration. Cloud. They want to do cloud network integration. So I think there is also plan to kind of aggregate existing capabilities, as you mentioned. But then again, this kind of implementational details are still fuzzy. We'll have to
Right.
in coming days or maybe months, or I don't know, maybe
Right.
even in years.
Right.
We'll
Yes,
know.
definitely. I mean, it's always like that, right? I mean, we kind of, they see a certain phrase which we can spot in one of their official documents, and everyone just has to just speculate on what it might entail for the next 6 months until they actually release a specific government like document on it so that we actually know what what they actually
Yes.
mean by it. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyways, finally, I just wanted to know about the role of the private sector itself, like the domestic private sector in China. We know that the technology growth which China has kind of been provided in the last decade or so has been due to the impetus of the private sector itself. Like there are technology giants like Huawei, Alibaba, and others who are involved, who are actively involved with the state and the government in kind of pushing technological projects through. So, has there been any kind of indication from any sort of technology giant within the country that they are also involved in this project and that they are actively working with the government on anything related?
So, I mean, with any project in any tech related project in China, I don't think there is other option with, entrepreneurs and tech industries to not support Chinese government's project. But even beyond, government coercion, the big tech in China or even the, startup or the whole tech ecosystem in China has always leveraged these projects to, further their own development, I would say. So even in this project, there is a possibility that it will give impetus to a lot of industries to move probably westwards. And for example, if a new data center is being opened, then the surrounding it will give an impetus to other industries which depend on data processing and computing to set up their shop nearby, or basically move their operations there, maybe outsource. So of course it is, if this is implemented as it is envisioned, it will be a beneficial for the whole ecosystem. Also there is a support. For example, some of the tech delegates, which are also like, tech industry representatives, are also delegates to National People's Congress and Chinese People Consultative Conference, that is CPCC. They have announced their support for this project, and they have declared that they will also set up, data centers under this project. They have also announced that they'll do some green AI kind of thing. Basically, green AI is also, there is this, common rule of thumb is whenever you see green AI or green tech or green that kind of thing, what they mean is that net carbon footprint would be either negative or zero. So, AI, green AI would here then mean that they want to implement or, develop an AI system which has negative carbon footprint or a zero carbon footprint. Then there's also media reports that Chinese tech giants like Tencent Holdings and Huawei and Alibaba have promised to have some, cloud network or have their own data computing centers as announced in this computing network. So again, these are like media reports of promises and announcements, but so far I haven't seen any, a robust kind of financial commitment or announcement of, oh, hey, we actually did this kind of evidence. But let's see, the time will tell.
Yes, definitely. I mean, from what I understood, I think this project is more or less kind of meant to create like a grid-like structure wherein there is an equal distribution of computing capability across their mainland. And as you said, right, they're shifting some of their operations to the West, which has not been the Western part of the country, which has not been technologically developed yet. And it remains to be seen if even the tech giants are, okay with shifting their operations to some of these areas and, continuing forward with their infrastructure, the projects. So, yeah, I mean, it's always better to talk about this before than after they do it. So I think whatever we said today, at least maybe 10% of it comes true in the next 5-6 years. So let's see. Hopefully they stick to their stated objectives of the plan itself, and we'll see how that goes. So thank you, Megha, for joining me today, and it was really fun talking to you about all things China tech related.
Thank you so much, Arjun. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. See you guys in the next episode of All Things Policy. Bye-bye.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
हम महिलाएं रोज के कामों में बहुत व्यस्त रहती हैं और हो भी क्यों ना, काम, पढ़ाई और जिम्मेदारियां सभी पूरी करनी जरूरी हैं। पर इन सब के बीच हम जीवन के एक बहुत ही जरूरी पहलू को नजरअंदाज कर देती हैं, फाइनेंस। इसीलिए हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं SBI लाइफ प्रस्तुत एक चुस्की फाइनेंस, महिलाओं द्वारा महिलाओं के लिए बनाया गया पॉडकास्ट। यहाँ मैं प्रियंका आचार्य, आपकी होस्ट, आपके साथ शेयर करूंगी कि किस तरह आप अपने फाइनेंसेस को बहुत आसानी से संभाल सकती हैं और फाइनेंशियली इंडिपेंडेंट बन सकती हैं। अपने 14 वर्षों का अनुभव लिए मैं आ रही हूँ हिंदी और अन्य 7 भाषाओं में हर मंगलवार नए एपिसोड्स के साथ IVM पॉडकास्ट नेटवर्क और अन्य चर्चित पॉडकास्ट प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर।
Remember the days when our granny used to narrate once upon a time stories? Let's bring back the good old days of moral stories with Storytime Tamil. Hi, I am Ravishankar Balachandran, host of Storytime Tamil podcast. I would like you to entertain and educate your children with stories from Storytime Tamil. Tune in to the new episode sharp at 7 p.m. every day on IVM website, IVM podcast app, YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcast from.